You won the Grammy last year for your album, Best Vocal Jazz Album. Tell me the process as an independent artist, submitting to be nominated, let alone a campaign, and then eventually winning the Grammys.
If you have the credits to join the Recording Academy, you just need two recommendations. And it is this incredible community that's not based around the awards. The Recording Academy has changed tremendously. And I really believe in my heart that now anybody who makes a beautiful album can win now. In 2018, we were nominated for a Grammy with zero campaign. We didn't even know we were in the running for it. And then from then on, I was like, I didn't know this was possible for me. We were about to quit music. No, not
Wow.
necessarily quit, but we were doing so many weddings, so many background gigs, so many driving to students. We just weren't seeing any light at the end of the tunnel. As a musician household, we're going, I don't know if we can do this anymore. And then we woke up to a Grammy nomination. We didn't really campaign as much as I was hyper diligent about making
Mhm.
sure everyone in the world knew that I had that album out. For me, it started 2.5 years before it even came out. I'll just stick all my eggs in this basket over here because I
Yeah.
believe there's a golden egg.
What's going on? Welcome to the New Music Business. I'm your host, Ari Herstand, author of How to Make It in the New Music Business, the book. Third edition is out now everywhere, all formats, hardcover, ebook, audiobook, however you like books, you can find the book. Today, my guest is Nicole Zuraitis.
Champagne and declarations, massive understatements, oh, to conceal the unchanged, keep the wheels rolling in this well-oiled motorcade. Mistakes well planned and well played.
She is a two-time Grammy winner and a four-time Grammy-nominated jazz singer-songwriter, pianist, and arranger. She's based in New York, and she's released a bunch of records, won a lot of awards. She's also a professor at NYU. She's played all over the world. She's actually just about to head over to China, play the Lincoln Center in Shanghai. She's going to play Italy. And we talk about everything from the New York scene, the music scene in New York in general, how it's shifted over the last 15 years, and the New York jazz scene specifically. We talk about working with her partner. Her husband is a drummer, and they've collaborated a lot. He actually won a Grammy this year for Best Large Ensemble, and she's featured on the record. Her Grammy-winning album from last year, she collaborated with Christian McBride on that album. She's a vocalist on the Grammy-winning Last Sunday in Plains, a centennial celebration alongside Jon Batiste, Keb Mo, and Leanne Rimes. And we talk today just how she makes it work as a jazz musician in New York City. You know, even as a Grammy winner, as you can imagine, you know, jazz is a niche market. It's not like there's a ton of money necessarily. And so we talk about how she makes it work and what that all means. Her last few albums, she released with an independent label where she owns all of her masters. So she talks about that, how she makes these albums, what the relationship is like with the label. And, you know, she's gotten quite a bit of editorial inclusion on the streaming services. And so she talks about that. And we even get into selling CDs and vinyl records and her take on all of that, especially live. So loved having this conversation. If you're interested in the jazz world, if you're interested in New York, or just doing it indie, doing it independently, this is a great episode with Nicole. You can find Nicole Zuraitis everywhere you find music. It's just under her name on however you're listening to music. Find her on the socials, all of that good stuff. Find all of us that make the show happen at Ari's Take on the socials. Find me at Ari Herstand on Instagram. But right now, if you wouldn't mind, just pause this episode, leave us a 5-star review, however you're listening to this, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, give us a thumbs up on YouTube, hit the follow button, hit the subscribe button, leave us a comment, give us a comment on YouTube or Spotify podcasts, but most importantly, visit aristake.com and get on the email list. That's the best way to stay in touch with us, aristake.com. All right, let's kick into the show. Nicole Zuraitis, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Ari. What's going on?
Oh, man, this is great. So first off, congrats on the new live album, Live at VIXX. That's very exciting. It sounds awesome. I've been listening to it a bit, and yeah, congrats. That's awesome. That's very cool. I know you have a release show coming up soon, but yeah, the album's out. It sounds great.
Yeah, 2 hours of music, because I'm an extremist, so why not? Why just put it all out there? Just throw it all into one thing.
Put it all out there. I know. Now, tell me about this spot in Vegas. Is this like this jazz club? Is this like a normal spot for you, or did you book these shows specifically thinking you wanted to make this live record there?
Well, my last name is of Lithuanian heritage, and
Okay.
it's not Greek, unfortunately. Though I do love me the Greek folks, and so the owners, Sue, she's Lithuanian, so they had brought me to play, and I really believe that musicians create their own luck. And after I had played the first time, I got an email from a fan saying, "I like your studio records, but I've never heard." Like, you just sound so much different live. It's so exciting. You should make a live record. So the next time I came to play, Sue and her husband Paul were in the audience, and so was that fan. And I said, "Hey Jay, didn't you say I should make a live record here at VIXX?"
Yeah.
And when I got off stage, they said, "You know what? We really should make a live record here at this." At this club, because they're huge patrons of the arts and arts education, and it was just like a very exciting moment. So we did it. We pulled it off. It was exciting.
I mean, so did they have the infrastructure already built in there, or did you have to bring in engineer and sound equipment and the whole deal, like a board?
Well, it was definitely a learning experience. They had a beautiful infrastructure. The same person who built the sound system at Jazz and Lincoln Center built their sound system at VIXX. And so internally, it was already great, and they had a wonderful young engineer there, and we brought in another engineer to oversee named Carmen Grillo. And the first day was definitely a learning curve, because everyone has mics and different pedals, and Keon Harold plays trumpet and has all these beautiful pedals and effects. So it was a learning experience, but isn't every sound check. They pay me to sound check. They pay me to sound check.
They pay you to drive to the gig, actually. Yes. I mean, let's get real here.
For real.
Right. Nice. And so did you, you didn't film it though, right? Audio.
We filmed a little. Well, we had a videographer come, and he was supposed to film it, but I wish that we had full video, but then again, I have gigabytes and gigabytes and gigabytes and gigabytes of full shows on my computers and my hard drives that I've never ever touched or released.
Oh wow!
But I'm sure you would say that's terrible, Nicole. You should be releasing those out.
In this day and age, it's just like content, just spew it out there as fast as possible. But but that's great. I mean, the record sounds great. It's mixed really well. The performances, of course, are amazing. Keon is a genius. I mean, I've known him. He's a friend of the pod. I've known him for years.
Beautiful.
Little trivia. He was actually the trumpet sound behind Don Cheadle's playing in the Miles Davis biopic, if you knew that.
I did. Yeah, because before we went on stage, I was like, what do I say about you besides the fact that you're incredible and you play with everyone? He's like, I was the sound of Miles Davis in the biopic. Right. I was like, wow, I did not know that. That's so exciting.
I know, right? Pretty cool. I want to get into everything and the Grammys experience and all of that. But first, I see you're playing China in a little bit. I need to know everything about that, of like how you booked however many dates that you have, a lot of dates in Shanghai at so tell me, just tell me how that came to be and how it was setting it up and how it is working with Chinese promoters and all of that.
Well, that has two pretty cool sides to it. The first side is that, I'm a jazz singer-songwriter, and I've been really trying to get into the Jazz at Lincoln Center community. But it's a little tricky when you're writing original jazz music, but you also need to honor the tradition. So there's that part. So that's the tour is through Jazz at Lincoln Center, which is really exciting. It's based around Jazz at Lincoln Center, Shanghai. But the second part of it is that the Chinese promoter, his name is Wei Min, and my husband is a drummer, Dan Pugach. He's a composer, arranger for big band, also a Grammy winner, just like an amazing musician. But
won the Grammy this year.
Yes, for Best Large Jazz Ensemble.
Best Large Jazz, yeah.
And he has been telling me for 15 years, you know, my roommate from Berkeley, Wei Min, uh, is the guy in China. He's the guy. He's booking everything. And whenever he would
Hmm.
come to town, we would have dinner. But you know, at that time we had no notoriety. Nobody cared. Like no, it would be hard to bring us to China because
Sure.
we hadn't built our careers up yet. But he still was
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna bring you. And to this day, Wei Min will always say, now that we're still coming, he said, Dan was the only person who was nice to me at Berkeley when I was
Oh.
there. I was his roommate, he is my brother. And,
Oh.
you know, we can get into it. And I, just like you always mention, it's like the network always comes back around. So that's how we got
Yeah.
to China, because Wei Min brought us within Jazz Lincoln Center. And now those two worlds have merged. It's really exciting.
That's so cool. And I count, what am I counting? Six states at Lincoln Center, Shanghai, and then 2 dates in Hong Kong. So, I mean, I'm assuming there's a very supportive community there. I mean, is this your first time ever
First time.
playing China, traveling to China, the whole deal?
First time. I know that
Cool.
it's going to be a learning curve with, you know, not being able to use socials and being, you know, very
Right.
particular about what you say or don't say, and
mhm.
staying in touch here, but using the methods that they use. So it'll be a learning, but I love to travel, and it's my first time. And I guess the Hong Kong show is sold out, but the rest of the stuff, I'm just
Wow.
going, who's coming? I don't know anybody.
It's so wild. It is. I mean, you know, we've heard of bands and artists in the States that are like big in China and they just have no idea because, right, it's so siloed off with their own social media, their own streaming services. I mean, we had an artist manager on the show a few years back, Andrew Lieb, and he was telling the story of how his band that he managed, 5 years after the band broke up, they got an email from a Chinese promoter saying, "Hey, you have so many fans here. Can we set up a tour for you?" And like the band
awesome.
reunited so they could go like tour China, and all their dates sold out. And like, it's just wild. I mean, you never really know. So that's that's great. That's so exciting, and yeah, I can't wait to hear all about it. So that sounds fun.
I'll give you
That'll
the
be
full
great.
debrief. I'll give you the
Please.
full debrief.
Great. So tell me, I'm going like in reverse chronology here.
Okay.
So your husband Dan, big band arranger, you guys won the Grammy this year. I know you sang on the album. I'm not sure like who actually gets the hardware based or the certificates based on who's a part of it. And I know there was a gazillion people on that because it's a big band record. But you won the Grammy last year, and for your album, Best Vocal Jazz Album. So, How Love Begins. Tell me the process of, you know, as an independent artist, just like going about just, you know, even just submitting to be nominated, let alone a campaign, you know, to the you know FYC campaign and all of that, and then eventually, you know, winning the Grammys.
Wow. Well, I think that the industry has changed tremendously, and the Recording Academy has changed tremendously. And
Yeah.
I really believe in my heart that now anybody who makes a beautiful album, and if you get it in front of enough people and it's beautiful music, like anybody can win now. I've watched it over the last, I guess I've been a member since 2018, because in 2018 we were nominated for a Grammy with zero campaign, zero. We didn't even know we were in the running for it. We were nominated for arrangement, and then from then on, I was like, "Oh, I didn't know this was possible for me." We were about to quit music.
Yeah.
No, not
Wow.
necessarily quit, but we were doing so many weddings, so many background gigs, so many driving to students, and we just didn't. We just weren't seeing any light at the end of the tunnel. And, you know, as a musician household, we're going, I don't know if we can do this anymore. And then we woke up to a Grammy nomination out of nowhere. So I was like, I'm going to learn how this works.
Yeah.
I'm like, this kind of put a little more wind in my sails.
Sure.
But, you know, for an audience, a listener, like, if you have the credits to join the Recording Academy, you
Hmm.
can. You just need two recommendations, and it is this incredible community that's not based around the awards. The awards are one day a year, right? And
Right.
obviously, it is a gigantic driving factor for most people to join the academy, but for me, there's district advocacy, there's all these different branches, DEI, beautiful branches, to bring together musicians from all over the place. You meet producers, you meet lawyers, you meet producers and
Yeah.
lawyers. Oh yeah, sign me up. But it's been amazing. So like the process for me, all kind of boiled down to when I got my MBA. So I don't know where you want to start, but I
Yeah.
there's so many things to talk about when it comes to,
Yeah.
because it's not just like, oh, you won a Grammy, like how did you campaign? I'm like, well, it's not necessarily, we didn't really campaign as much as
Yeah.
I I was hyper diligent about making
Hmm.
sure everyone in the world knew that I had that album out.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and it didn't just start in FYC season, which, if nobody knows what that is like before voting, people can send for your considerations. This happens with the Oscars, with the Emmys, yada, yada, with the Grammys.
Hmm.
Um, for me, it started 2.5 years before it even came out. I was like, this is going to be the thing for me. And because again, I always walk myself to the ledge and almost jump off. And then I go,
Yeah.
I'll just stick all my eggs in this basket over here, because I
Yeah.
believe that this basket is there's a golden egg. I don't know. There's a golden egg in here. Um,
And this
so you can
album,
lead me in whatever
yeah,
question.
no,
There's
for
so
sure.
many
So,
ways to go.
well, I know you collaborated with Christian McBride on the album, so I know that had you worked with him previously, or did you come together for this project alone?
So that's a cool story. Again,
Hmm.
I had met him. Well, not even met him. I came into jazz as a late bloomer. I didn't feel like I understood the language, and didn't feel like I was even good at it. I started doing it for real when I was 24, and then at 29, I applied for one jazz award, the Herb Alpert Jazz Composer Award, and I got it, and I was like, whoa, does that mean I can do this jazz thing? I guess. And so I would kind of
Yeah.
start throwing myself into things, and I got into the Sarah Vaughan competition. And, ironically, when I did get in, the promoter called me and said, hi, Nicole, this is, I'll call him Frank from the Sarah Vaughan competition. You did not get into the Sarah Vaughan competition. I'm like, oh, thanks. I didn't know they were calling people to let them know that it wasn't
that you're
happening.
rejected.
I
Great
was
call. Thanks so much for that.
I'm
You have
used
a
to an
good day.
email, yeah.
Right.
And then he goes, well, the fifth finalist dropped out, so you're in. But frankly, I think you're more like a rock singer. I was like, thank you so much. And then he said, so you can come. So I got to do the Sarah Vaughan competition. I placed. I was a runner up. It was super exciting. And
Okay.
Christian was a judge. So I didn't
Oh,
get to
nice.
meet him, but
Sure.
then about 6-7 months later, I went right back to singing backgrounds. I was doing like the Billy Joel style, sing, play the piano across from Carnegie Hall for many, many years. The background, paid radio. And I was playing, and he walked in, and I didn't notice, and I was just like playing pretty terribly because no one was paying attention. I was just practicing. And he was like, I know you. How do I know you? So we exchanged phone numbers, became friends. We hung out every, like quarterly.
Yeah.
And then when the pandemic hit, didn't see him for a year and a half. And then when I did see him, I was like, okay, I finally feel like I can ask the best bass player in the world if he would actually want to follow through with what he'd always said to me. We should make music one day.
Right.
And I finally felt like I had something that was worth his time and energy. And so many young musicians don't realize that just because you have access to someone who is, legendary, or someone that you look up to, doesn't mean that they have to give you anything yet, because you don't necessarily have anything to offer yet. So it took me 6.5 years of knowing him to ask him for the one thing. And he said yes.
Yeah.
So
No, that's a testament, and I mean, you really played that smartly in a way that's like you knew you had a shot, but you wanted to wait to take it, and it's kind of like you never know what's going to happen, but at the same time, you want to set yourself up for success and give yourself the best chance to succeed. And you knew that maybe it wasn't right at the time initially when you first met him. So what convinced you that this was the right time, this was the right album?
Well, I was watching everyone on social, from our houses, and I went and I got.
Mm-hmm.
I call it a panic MBA, a panic Masters of Business, because
Okay.
we were doing a virtual piano lounge every Friday, but again, musician household, no safety net, no like generational wealth to hold us up. I'm like, I don't know what I want. I don't know what I need to do, but I want to get a higher education so I can go teach at a university, right? Because that feels safe at the time. But I don't want to go get a master's of music. I'm already doing music full time. I need to go learn something. So I got a MBA. And that's when I was like, oh, this is as you know, a business. Music is a business. And I have to treat it as such. But as I was studying my entrepreneurial studies, it wasn't necessarily that getting the MBA helped me as much as it was my friend Steve, who had an MBA as well, calling me after or during and saying, well, how are you applying this to your life? And I said, I don't know. I'm not applying it to my life right now. We're starting to try and build a plan for an NFT business.
Yeah, right. I know. Yeah, that was the time. Remember that?
That was the time. And I was super excited about that. We were like, I don't even remember what they were called. I think they were pizza people. I don't remember. Anyways, he goes, that sounds cute, but what about you? What about you?
Yeah.
And it was the most scary thing I've ever done and also for him, as someone who works in actual, business outside of music, he could not understand that no matter what he asked me, he would say, well, how do you know this is true? Where's the data? How do you know that what is a successful song? How many streams is that? What does that look like monetarily? How do you get there? Who's the person? And so being able to like literally write out a business plan for myself and list my assets. And one of the assets that I felt like I had, again, it's weird to talk about people as assets, but in the business world, that's what you do. But I wrote Christian McBride. I was like, he is my friend. He picks up the phone. We talk about jokes. Like maybe he would want to work together. And so that was a turning point for me. And I also felt like I had written good enough music at that point that it wouldn't be embarrassing to show him 25 songs that I wrote.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that because, that's somewhat unique in the jazz world to write your own songs, write the music. I mean, jazz has the tradition, of course, of playing standards and playing people's. I know, in 2018, you were on the map for arranging for the Dolly Parton Jolene song, and which is great, and your arranging is brilliant, but it's you wrote these songs and I believe, I mean, you wrote and arranged the album, and it's just like that's unique in the world. And so what kind of inspired that going into the project, saying, oh no, I want to write these songs? And was there kind of a deliberation thinking, well, should I split it up with standards because that's what the jazz world wants, or they, maybe I'll be more accepted in this world if I play more standards, versus showcasing and highlighting yourself as a composer?
Yeah, I mean, you absolutely 100% nailed it, because the easy way would have been for me to sing standards with Christian McBride. But I knew in my heart of hearts that like, there's no way that I'm going to sing it better than the people that I learned it from, Ella, Sarah, Billy. It's like they did the thing. They already did it, and they did it so perfectly and beautifully. And I believe that it's the innovation from what you learn, and that to me is songwriting. And so I always was writing music, and it was always genreless, and it was this gigantic Achilles heel. And it's definitely the hardest path you can take as a jazz singer, is to be like, I'm gonna write it all so that whenever I play a show for an audience that's never heard me, they won't recognize anything and they can't sing along. And but that's also why I do arrangements such as Jolene or Wichita Lineman or Pure Imagination, because I know what it feels like to be an audience member and want to hold on to something. And so during that time when I was coming up with How Love Begins, I noticed that like nostalgia was the driving force for so many people, especially in jazz. Like if a singer sounded like somebody from the 40s, 50s, 60s, people were like, wow, that's so exciting and so beautiful. And for me, I was going, I should probably do that, but why can't I why am I so stubborn? And I had released 5 other albums of original music. But again, like, I was getting better at the craft. I didn't come out of the womb a prodigy. And I'm not embarrassed to say that. I was learning very slowly. And then when I showed him all of the pieces, not only did he say, choose all the originals, but he also said, you're going to play the piano. I said, well, why would I play the piano if I could get anyone else to play the piano? Right. He's like, do you think Carole King doesn't play the piano just because she's doesn't feel like she can shred? It's like, you wrote the music, play the instrument. So he really empowered me to do that.
Wow. That's
but
awesome.
It's definitely a journey.
So cool. Yeah. Tell me about arranging. How do you approach your arrangements? I mean, like taking Rhiannon, for instance, the Fleetwood Mac song, Stevie Nicks song, and putting it in 5. Something that's not something so that I would have expected, but that was so cool. And how do you approach arrangements like that?
I feel so embarrassed sometimes because there is a part of me that like jazz nerd. The nerd. I lived in India for just 3 months. I was teaching at a school, and odd meters just became part of my existence, as opposed to like, I'm putting this in 5. I just felt I feel something in 5 or 7 in the same way I feel it as 4. But all of my arrangements basically were born, with the exception, I think, of Jolene, from someone requesting them to me at one of my background gigs. So I would be doing the paid radio thing, and someone would say, oh, do you know Walk on the Wild Side? I bet you can't sing that because, Lou Reed doesn't really sing. And I said, I bet I can. So I was just start playing around with it. And then for Rhiannon, on the piano, especially when I'm arranging, I wish I played the guitar, because I think so much more of my music would be upbeat and fun and funky. But because it's on the piano, it just sounds so like lame. Just like A minor, A minor, A minor, F, 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 F. But if you swing it and put it in 5, it just feels a little bit more. It just sounds better when you're playing alone. So that's kind of I just think that you got to keep the melody no matter what in an arrangement.
Yeah.
Do whatever you want with the harmony, but the melody is king. Otherwise, you're just writing something else.
Right. No, I love that. So you've mentioned paid radio a couple times. For people that don't know what that is, what does that mean, paid radio gigs?
I know, it's so silly. It means it's the person in the back of the bar singing and playing, and you didn't pay admission to see them. You came to enjoy the ambiance, and they just happen to be there. And so they're there. And sometimes you go and ask them for requests, but most of the time you're going to scream across the table to your friend or watch YouTube right in front of them, literally from 5 feet away. Or you're going to get hammered, and then, 5 drinks in, then you're going to come talk to them. And then on their last song, after the fourth hour, you'll say, "I want more song." That's a paid radio
Yeah.
gig.
Oh God. Yeah. I've always. Yeah. I mean, we've all done our fair share of these cover gigs, and I actually never heard it referred to as a paid radio gig before. But I guess maybe that's a New York thing. These piano bars or something like that. So tell me. I mean, it's no surprise that it is not easy to make a living as a musician, just in general, no matter what level you're at. But save for maybe superstar, but especially a jazz musician, and like balancing the need to pay your bills versus establishing your brand as this, Grammy-winning jazz artist, jazz singer, arranger, composer, and that balance. Because, I mean, are you still doing paid radio gigs?
No, but I wouldn't.
Okay.
I wouldn't. Not, it's been a year and a half since I've done a paid radio gig. It's very exciting. Well, actually,
Yeah.
a year and a half.
Yeah.
And I feel this like sense of pride, but not because I'm above it. Like I would happily go back to it. A friend of mine who does weddings at a really high level said to me once that wedding bands are for people on the way up and also on the way back down. So like it's just a way to make a living, and there's no shame in the game.
Yeah. Yep.
But I learned so much. Not only was I at paid radio, but I was being paid to practice. And that was huge for me when so many people would turn their nose up to doing a wedding or doing something where people weren't paying attention. I saw it every time as like, wow, I'm making a living playing music. This is so incredible. And then I would take those moments where I thought no one was listening and just be creative.
Cool.
And that's where a lot of those arrangements would come from. So it's like a reframe, I think. I think you asked another question, but I got just I started.
Well, that's great perspective, and I love the framing of that. I guess just in general, as a musician, as a jazz artist in New York, like how do you make it work? New York is expensive. I believe New York still is the most expensive city in the country. Maybe San Francisco's overtaken it, but how long have you been in New York? And just tell me this journey and just like how you've made it work and are making it work.
I love it. Okay. I came to New York for real to do jazz in 2009. And I think of making it in New York as like a ladder system, because it doesn't all happen at once, and you have to maintain stamina as you're like climbing the ladder. Otherwise, you're going to quit and you're going to go home because it is brutal. The number one thing, obviously, is always networking. So like going out and meeting people. For me, it would just be to go listen because I didn't have enough confidence to participate in jam sessions. I didn't feel like I had anything to offer. And I don't know if this is a unique trait, because most people like move to the city are like, I'm gonna make it, man. But I moved to the city and I was like, I got a lot to learn, man. Like, holy crap. So the first step of the ladder is like find a job that pays your rent. So I was a hostess at Sarah Beth's, and I also did this terrible driving to teach outside of the city private lessons, and then use the free time that I had to go out and listen to music. Then the next step was, go audition for a wedding band. So then I auditioned for a wedding band, and I was like, oh, wow, I can quit the hostessing job and I can do the wedding band and still do the driving thing. And so in the wedding band, you're meeting more musicians. And then from there, it's like book sessions, because you're trying to get people. Again, it's the spider web. You have to make the network and then have people over the house and try different things. And so setting little goals for yourself, like I want to play at Rockwood, rest in peace, under my name once a year, that's like, it's almost insane to think about that. That's like something that would drive someone to stay in New York, to do music. But as it's happening, I was just grateful to be making a living doing music. So each step of the ladder, I would like get rid of something that was maybe not as fun and then just start doing music full time. So when we did music full time, that was an exciting moment. Or we started book shows at like the 55 bar. And I was like, I want to play Lincoln Center. You know, now I'm still climbing the ladder. I'm like, I want to play Carnegie Hall. You know, like I'm like, sign me up.
Sure.
So the ladder is always there. There's always another step that you can get to in New York. And that is, I guess, an inspiring way to look at all the other reasons why you suffer there. But it's all about the network. It's just who you meet. I met so many different types of artists, and that's why I was in so many different bands.
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, it's everyone has their own journey, and I know New York is so unique, and every scene in New York is probably dramatically different. I mean, so you came to New York in 2009 with the intention of being a jazz artist, or were you doing like based on the feedback you got from that Sarahphone competition, were you doing other genres at the same time and still trying to find your voice, find your sound, find your style?
Yeah, I was just trying to I just wanted to sing. I had no goals. I just knew that I wanted to sing. I thought maybe I could be a jazz singer, but then I was not inspired by the fact, like every time I would do a background gig and sing only standards, I was like, this can't be what jazz is. Like this to me is not exciting for me to sing the same chart the same way down and do a 3-time tag at the end. Like that doesn't excite me. So I realized I was like, I like to write, but I could use help. So I just had to keep writing. And so I ended up through like another person that I met joining a folk band and touring in the folk band. And then I joined a blues band, and then obviously the cover bands. Then my band was kind of like this fusion-y rock band. But jazz was always kind of hanging out in the back of my mind, and I was going, I think that's what I am. I think at the root of it all, I like the improvisatory nature of the music. But that's why I started calling the music that I write modern songbook, because it's not necessarily like jazz, like we're swinging, we're doing the thing. Yeah. It's inspired by the greatest songwriters of all time, like Carole King and Stevie Wonder, and Billy Joel, you know.
Yeah. And meeting your now husband, Dan Pugach, I mean, you've collaborated a bunch. Did you start, I mean, were you in a band together? Did you meet on a gig, or is that how it started? That's sweet.
Yes. Oh man. I always say that we met through a mutual musician, a jazz piano player, when I moved to this city, and we became friends. And he came to my show and said, you need a really good band. I can help you. And then he would also say, you should play the piano. I'm like, I'm not that good at it. He's like, no, but you should play. And then I hunted him like prey. And even though he was like, I don't want to lose the gig. I said, no. We're gonna date and make this incredibly hard. For eternity,
right? Because music, just pursuing a music career is so easy. So let's make this.
Let's do it together.
Right.
And put all the pressure on each other to pay. Yeah. But the music kind of we've been playing in each other's bands forever. For 16 years.
Wow. Yeah, making it work. That is wild. And no, that's great. I mean, it's collaborating with your partner. That's, I mean, just like professionally, how do you make sure that you kind of keep the stay aligned, I guess is the way in all facets of the partnership?
The silence that in my brain. Oh man, it is one of the greatest gifts ever to be able to tour with the person that you love and on a successful level, or to like have that person also come home at 2 a.m. You know, so you both can debrief, as opposed to if we had found other partners, we would never see each other. So that's number one. But holding each other accountable for our goals is very helpful for a musician couple, because we really know what it feels like on our skin to feel the rejection and to feel also the hope. So like there's the rejection and the hope on both sides of the coin, and both of us know what it feels like to get both or to have both. And so when one gets slapped, the other one's like, don't you dare give up. And then when the other one feels hope, it's like, see, we can do this. We can do this. It's really nice. I mean, it's also super difficult because we never get to leave the work. And the more successful we get, the more I find that the work-life balance is actually getting worse. Because we don't do as many fun things because we're like, well, we got to ride the wave, babe, ride the wave. But I literally want to just go ride a wave in the ocean as opposed to thinking constantly about the next step. But it's a gift. It's a gift, and it's also kind of a curse. So, yeah, and he would say the same.
Sure. But, no, I totally feel that. I get that. I mean, similarly, I work with my wife, and she's an artist, and we're in music together, and so I get you. I feel you. I'm right there with you.
Yeah, you're always, you can't escape it. You can't escape the work.
Yeah, but it is, as it's like I'm sure the two of you have had previous partners who are not in the industry, and as have I, and it is it takes a very special understanding person to get what we do. And sometimes it can work with someone who is just a lay person outside, but other times it can be a muggle. Is that what we call them? Yeah, right. But it can be also very helpful, like you said, just because we speak the same language, and it's just there's this unspoken understanding that's just always there. And I love how you framed that, the rejection and the hope, because there is so much of that in this industry. Oh my God.
Yes, my God.
Arguably, yeah, more than any other industry. I want to talk about New York a little bit. It is, I mean, one of these towns that has always been there as kind of just, it's this, they call it the center of the universe, and it's just but it has changed so dramatically, especially with music. There's my friend Danny Ross, who runs the Antisocial Songwriter Camp out there. He started this mission of trying to, I guess, selfishly show people that New York still matters for music, because, everyone has talked about how much of the industry has kind of left New York, or how many artists have left New York, come to LA, gone to Nashville. But tell me your experience. You've been there now 16 years. How has New York changed in just the time that you have been there, and where do you see it's at now?
That's a really interesting question. I mean, I'm definitely team New York. As much as I complain about it, I'm team New York, because you can get to so many different types of music really quickly on public transportation. So that's really great. Yeah. And I think if my tombstone was to read something, it would say, like, Nicole always shows up to the event. So there's a lot of things always happening in New York where you can go and grow your web and meet people. And when I say those words, I think LA, right? Because LA is supposed to be the networking hub. And then I also have this like sickening feeling in my stomach where, like, ugh, networking. But I'd never have ever thought of it like I was networking. I really was just always looking to find friends. And so in New York, I think you need friends. And so those they exist, especially when you're young, and especially when you're young. As you get older and everyone gets a family and they move out, it's a little harder. But if you came up through the trenches of New York, you have a forever friend. But the way that it's
Mm,
changed, I think, is that a lot of the clubs closed because of the
yeah.
pandemic, and that was pretty heartbreaking. The clubs that thrived, there's just less work. There's less work for jazz musicians at high level clubs because so many closed, and then clubs that weren't necessarily listening rooms, that were having background music, they also kind of shut down doing background music. So it made it much more
Oh.
difficult and much more competitive
Mm,
um, to find a gig. And so my little ladder system that I referenced before is a little bit more difficult because there's not as many places for a musician to kind of grab a gig. However, I teach at NYU, and I teach in the contemporary voice department, and one of their assignments is like they have to open for an artist or book their own show. And so I'm forced to
hmm,
think like a young and upcoming artist. And so there are
yeah.
little clubs that popped up that have music. It's just a different scene. It's almost like through the concrete, there's like the weeds are turning into flowers again. I really believe that New York is still the New York. That when you walk down in the village, you will still hear music, and it's still vibrating and bustling and exciting. Um, I think that the biggest loss was the pandemic and all the clubs closing. Um,
Mm,
but there are clubs opening right now, which is exciting.
really?
Yes,
Okay.
there
That's great
are
to hear. In Manhattan, or have clubs moved out to Brooklyn and elsewhere?
both. A couple
Okay.
in Manhattan, but in Brooklyn, um, Brooklyn's still like a super happening scene
Yeah.
over there.
Yeah.
Um, we miss living there. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you and tell me about just kind of how that's broken down by genre, or at least your understanding and experience with that, because I'm sure there's a difference between just kind of the indie rock clubs or the singer-songwriter clubs you referenced, Rockwood Music Hall, which I had played many, many times in the past every time I came through. And yeah, it's it's devastating to see that shut down. It was such an institution of the Lower East Side. But then the jazz clubs, which I'm less familiar with that scene in New York, and I'm curious, like, I mean, sure, there are legendary ones. I do see that you're playing Drum coming up, but that also is kind of an everything club, and I guess they have different setups and all that stuff. But yeah, tell me if like is jazz thriving like it's always been? Is jazz still as prominent in New York as it's ever been, or has that also shifted because the clubs are shutting down, and just the realities of the city?
Great question. I think, well, for example, Drum is a perfect, I don't want to call it a midway club, but
Yeah.
it's a club that doesn't have an insane radius clause. Um, it's a club that
Radius clause meaning that you can't play any other clubs within a certain radius, like
time
miles or
time frame.
time. Yeah. Okay.
I play at Dizzy's at Lincoln Center, and I play at Birdland, but those
Hmm.
gigs are like once, twice a year
Okay.
because they're huge spaces and they book months to almost years in advance, and
Hmm.
they have everybody coming through. So that, you don't survive off of one show at Lincoln Center.
Right.
You have
Right.
to, that's why you have to, in New York especially, have a different way of income, whether it's a passive income that you make at your house, if you're
Hmm.
doing voiceovers or whatever. Um, but Drum is a great example of a club that I can call because I've developed a relationship with them. They trust that I'm going to bring humans there, and I trust that they're going to give me a date when I need it. And you could
Yeah.
call them 2 to 3 months in advance and be like, hey, can I have a date in September?
Yeah.
So those kind of clubs do exist, but those are all based on the relationship, and all the jazz clubs that I know are based on when did you show up there? And when the
Mm.
55 bar was open, which was next to Stonewall and in Greenwich Village, I played there once a month for 7 years. And then it
Wow.
closed right after the pandemic. It was horrible
Mm.
for the community. People will say, how do I get a gig at 55 bar? I'm like, have you ever come to see me perform at 55 Bar?
Mm.
And they say, well, I work. I was like, no, you come to my show. That's how
That's
jazz
right.
works. That jazz is
Yeah.
like so insular and small. I don't know if it's the same in the indie rock thing, but if you show up to someone's show in the jazz industry and you buy a ticket and that person is like, you spent $35 to see me at Zinc Bar? Wow. You want to be friends?
Yeah.
I literally feel so much
real.
gratitude when somebody buys a ticket to my show. I can't believe you spent $50 to see me here. Here's my phone number. It's a very small little thing. And jazz, at least, you can go to jam sessions. They're late and they're horribly late at night. And for me, I can't even stay up that late anymore, but they exist. And that's just a bunch of amazing musicians all playing one song, waiting to play one song for 3 hours. You wait 3 hours to play one song, but at least you're there in the room and you're making connections with other musicians, and you book sessions, and then you play with those people. And then next thing you know, you have a band. The indie rock scene, I don't know how many open mics there are anymore in New York. I don't know of any. I know that there's one open mic every Monday that anybody could perform at Birdland, called Jim Caruso's Cast Party. And that's how I got into Birdland, was performing at that open mic.
Cool.
So just showing up, you just got to show up wherever you can find the thing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. And it's nice to hear. It's encouraging that, I mean, New York is still there is still a scene, and people are still, I know networking is such a dirty word, but people are still gigging and playing and meeting people and hanging out and showing up. And I mean, showing up is so important. And I'm glad you said that. Is just like, it's not, people need to remember, it's not what can you do for me if you haven't done anything for them. And it's like, even just buying a ticket and showing up to their show, it's just kind of the community aspect, and to really grow together. I love that. Tell me about, so I saw you released your last few records with, is it La Reserve Records, or what are they called? How does this?
La Reserve.
Is this French? Is this like, I don't know. Tell me about the Canadian. Okay. So yeah, tell me about, working with a label like this, and what it's like versus kind of releasing music, completely DIY on your own, and kind of what went into that decision.
Well, I've done the boutique label twice with Outside In and La Reserve. And for me, it's the best because I own the masters. I pay completely for the album. And the way that I do that is I either have private donors that give me small amounts and it all adds up, or grants, or obviously the work that I've done, I don't mind putting it back into my art. It's a tax write-off now, thanks to the HITS Act.
Now, the HITS Act, just to clarify, just so people that don't know, is that artists can write off 100% of the recording costs in the first year, which artists couldn't do previously. You had to kind of spread that out over time. Is that right?
Yeah, or you just weren't even allowed to write them off at all. It would there were loopholes, but now it's a little bit more streamlined.
Yeah, straightforward. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
So that's how. So La Reserve and Outside In, you fund it yourself, and then you own your master, and you hand it to them, and they distribute it. And so they have the relationships with the DSP. They have an in-house person who will help you carve out your narrative if you need. They'll make posts on your behalf. It's just a nice new team member, and they take a much smaller percentage than a regular label. And it's been amazing because La Reserve has terrific relationships with different streaming services. So we actually do see, income come in from our digital platforms, which is, I think, a miracle, in this day and age.
For real. I mean, and especially in such a niche genre. Now I do see you're on quite quite a few official like Spotify editorial playlists and all of that. I'm assuming the label kind of helped with that, and they have those connections and relationships. But you know, there is such a, I mean, that's the hottest discussion point right now in the indie music community, especially, is just streaming. You know, the ethics around streaming and all of that. I mean, as someone who comes from an era where you still remember CDs and probably hawking CDs and you know, building it that way and going, you know, fan to fan selling stuff. How do you structure it and even think about it all, knowing that, all right, you are generating revenue from streaming services. Your music miraculously is you know, generating money from streaming, which like most artists can't say that. But just in how that relates and compares to, you know, selling direct or do you even make CDs and vinyl records still these days? You do. Okay.
I do, and I will die on this hill. I really believe in the physical product, and people are so shocked that I have CDs, and they'll even come to the merch table and they'll be like, "Oh, I don't have a CD player." And I will never, first of all, I'm a terrible salesperson. I don't want to push. I'm bad at hawking. This is why I can't get as many followers as I want. Like I'm trying to figure out how people just accept abundance mindset or whatever, but I'm not going to push someone to buy a CD. But what the thing about CDs that I have a lot of success selling them, and vinyl, especially when I'm touring, is that like they get a chance to chat with the artist, and like I'm so grateful that they bought the CD. I sign it, I put their name on it. I really put a lot of care into the design of the CD. I have a little booklet inside with my lyrics. It's a little moment. And same thing with a vinyl. I think people miss like the tangible playing cards moment with CDs and stuff. And you can't take me with you if you just go home and listen to me on streaming services. And we all know that, you know, it was the worst thing that could have ever happened to us in the industry, but it is what it is. So I'm not going to take all my stuff down from all the platforms and in protest.
Right.
You know, I'd rather save an animal than cut off my nose to spite my face. Right. So I believe in CDs, and I believe in vinyl, and I believe that if you believe that they're worth something, then people will pay you $20. So every show, you know, we make sometimes $1,000, an extra $1,000 off of like CDs.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. Even people that don't have a CD player or a turntable or something, they'll buy it as a souvenir to have that moment with you. You've signed it, and then they can go, you know, put the album on a streaming service and then open the liner notes and read along with the lyrics and look at the photos and look at the credits. And I mean, I still love that. I mean, I'm a vinyl collector. I'm a little bit different in that, but I do love that. I'll buy my favorite records, but it's honestly for the whole ritual experience of doing all of that. And I think, you know, the real fans, especially live at shows, you know, they do want a way to support the artist, but also to have something that they can hold. It's like, you know, buying a T-shirt at a big show or something like that. It's almost just like a souvenir from the show. And so, yeah, that's great perspective. Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, it's nice.
Cool. I love that. So tell me what's I mean, you have this China, I don't know if we're calling it a tour, but these dates in China, you have a date in Italy. What's next? What's 2026 going to bring for you?
I have my studio album that's going to come out. It's
okay.
I'm doing that with Larry Klein, who's an iconic producer.
Nice.
And then Christian McBride plays bass on it. And then we have Vince Mendoza's doing some strings, and Jerry Hay, and my friend Susan Bloomberg, who I made. She was one of my first friends at NYU. She's executive producing the entire thing.
Awesome.
So that, you know, indies you can find the same kind of money as a major label, but still own your masters. You know, you'd be surprised how many people want to support you. And the support, it was surprising to me how many people want to like invest in someone's art, either as an angel or
Mm.
like, getting tiny percentages on the back end. But,
How did you set that up? Were you doing a Kickstarter? Is there another platform or like, how do you make that happen?
well, when I first started realizing that people would be happy to participate, it's like it's having conversations with people and letting them know that it's difficult, what you're doing, or just they'll ask you, how do you make an album? And you say, well, I have to find the funds for it. And then they say,
Yeah.
how do you find the funds? I'm like, well, sometimes people will participate by, donating towards the process. We do Kickstarters. I'll get a grant. I'll blah, blah, blah. And they'll say, well, if you
Mhm.
ever need someone, keep me in mind. And so
Mm.
for me, when I was working all those background gigs, not to bring it back to that, I met so
Yeah.
many people who are just like drowning in money.
You're
You know what I mean?
Such a hard life.
Such a hard life. They're like,
drowning in all their money.
It
Yeah.
exists. It exists.
Yeah, I know.
And
Yeah.
a lot of my most favorite human beings on earth like have this creative spirit, but they chose to do something else besides besides like pursue their creativity, either because they knew that they weren't in the top 1%. And so they knew that they were going to suffer for it. And they just want to support. So you'd be surprised how many people want to. So Susan, she had always said, how do you, Dan, how are you surviving? And I just, over the course of a 20-year friendship, I would just always just be really honest about what was happening. And then she was like, if you ever want support with an album, I really believe I would love to do something like that. And then I didn't know that she would fully executive produce something. But here we
That's
are.
awesome.
And I'm super,
Yeah.
I couldn't be more grateful.
That's so great. Tell me about grants. How does that work? I don't even know there are grants in the United States of America for artists. Like in Canada, that's a common thing. And most artists I've spoken to who are in Canada and other countries, to be honest, get grants, and it's a fairly straightforward process. How does that work in here?
There are grants. There maybe
Okay.
are less grants now. But most of the grants, again, are through people I know. I watch people get a grant, and then I go, I don't know that grant existed. And then I go try and get the grant.
Okay.
But you can do like searches for it. I know that there's ones based on New York City, Chamber Music America. I got Cafe Royal, Cultural, at NEFA, New England Foundation of the Arts.
Wow.
There's so many grant opportunities, and I don't think enough people know that they exist and apply for them. Also, I'm not very good at getting grants because I don't have attention to detail, and I got it. But some people are
grant writer is a job title. People do grant writing. Mm-hmm.
Some people are like getting grant after grant, like $50,000 here and there. I'm like, geez, Louise, like it exists. Again, like everything exists. If it's it's attainable, it's possible. Yeah.
That's awesome. Right on. Well, Nicole, thank you so much for chatting with me and sharing all of this. And it's been, absolute pleasure. And it's really just nice to hear how you've carved out your path and your niche in your unique way. And that's, just with every artist in the industry, it's like finding our path and our way to make it work. And congratulations on all the success, and you're making great music, and I can't wait for the new album and to hear how all of that goes. I have one final question that I ask everyone who comes on the show, and that is, what does it mean to you to make it in the new music business?
Treating it like it's a marathon and not a sprint, and realizing that if you're authentic and genuine and you have the sustainability, that you will probably outlast most of the people, and the people who are in it for the longest are the ones that end up being the most successful because they got used to the word rejection as their middle name, and they just persevered right through.
Right on. Nicole, thank you so much. That was awesome. Thanks.
You're the best. Thank you, Ari.
Thank you.
I'm such a fan. I really am. I think you're like
thank you.
You're like the definition of someone who like did the thing. It's so amazing. It's so amazing what you do, and you keep doing it, for crying out loud. You didn't just do it.
Hey, we're all just doing it, right? We're all just making it work our own way.
Yes.
Cool. Thanks.
All right.
Right
You're
on.
the best.
All right,
Bye.
take care. This episode was edited by Peter Schrupp with music by Grassroots District and produced by all the great people at Ari's Take.